I really want to get a Prusa Core 1, but I don't have that kind of money lying around right now, you know? Printables has this points reward system called Prusameter. You can get points for like uploading models, getting likes, download, and so on. And then you can exchange those points for rewards. One of those is a Core 1 printer. But to get the printer, you need 29,000 points. And that's like a lot of points. Basically, getting a free printer out of uploading free models to printables would take a lot of time. And we don't have time for that, so let's hack the process. Printables also hosts a lot of contests, and if you win those contests, you get rewards. Currently, there's one open contest related to open source. For Open Source 2026, they are hosting a 3D printed Battletop Beyblade tournament. And related to that tournament, there's this contest. And not only that, but the first place will win a Prusa Core 1. Each contestant can upload up to 5 models. I'll probably try to max it out to improve our odds.
Several days later.
I said that we were going to publish all 5 models, but I don't actually think that's a good idea. So we're going to go with just 3. The original base stadiums are pretty bad. And why I say that? They take up a lot of space. Secondly, they use a very thin plastic. It tends to crack and it tends to break. However, they have a release more recently, this kind of fold-up stadium, which is a great idea actually. I thought it was genius because it solves both problems. So my first idea is a 3D printed version of this. This was my first time trying to design my own 3D printed hinges, so it took a couple of tries. My first attempt, to be honest, was ridiculous. It's way too thin, way too small, so it broke pretty much every way that it could break. Basically, what happens when you're designing things in CAD is that it's very easy to lose track of how small or how big things are because you have no scale. For the second attempt, I made everything beefier, as you can see, but it still broke. The part here on the left still had some thin walls, and that's why it broke. So again, I just made it beefier, and as usual on the third attempt it worked. This isn't perfect by any means. I did still polish it a bit more in terms of like the tolerances, just to make sure everything was smooth. But as you can see here, it does fold up and nothing broke. Okay, so that's the design that we went with on the final model. I modeled 2 versions in FreeCAD. Not the cleanest CAD model I ever did, but it will do. So we have a round version. As you can see, it folds up really nicely. Here are the printed hinges as well. And this version is kind of a bare bones version. Important to note that once it's open, it won't be level. So I added in some slots here for us to add some feet in order to make it level, okay? And then I made another version. As you can see, it will need more material to print, but it's easier since this is flat, and it's basically the same thing. Okay, so here's how the final model printed looks like. There's this color difference here because I had to swap rows mid-print, but otherwise looks perfect printed just like that. And then we can open it up, put the corner feet thingy, and then we got ourselves a really nice stadium right here. And here we have the spinning battle top that will be used in Open Source's tournament. And as you can see, works just fine. I launched it pretty badly there, but it works. Modern Beyblades consist of 3 parts: the blade, the ratchet, and the bit. And the part that is responsible for the movement pattern of the Beyblade, or any battle top actually, is the bit, as this guide here points out. And Roscoe TM10 kindly published this image online. I think it's pretty useful because it divides the common bits into the main 4 categories, which are attack, balance, stamina, and defense. And as you can see, it really depends on the shape of the bit. And for my second idea, what I want to do is to apply these concepts in Open Source 3D printed spinning Battletop model for the tournament, taking into account that this time I was going to be remixing an STL instead of designing a model from scratch. I decided to use Blender because it's much better for that, and this was actually pretty straightforward. So first I just trimmed the bottom so that we can have a flush surface to start working with. And then I modeled some different bits to merge with this trimmed bottom. So for example, we can have a hexagonal shape here, or we can maybe have a cylinder, or even a sphere, right? And then we can test out how that makes the spinning top, the battle top, behave in the arena. Here on the left I have the 5 different tips that I modeled. Let's play around a little bit to see how the different shapes affect how the blade spins. So here I mounted on the cylinder tip. One that I really want to try is the sphere tip to see how much of a difference it makes. Okay, that happens when the screw is pretty loose. Let's go again. Okay, so this is much nicer. I won't be testing all of them, but the last one that I do want to try is the hexagonal kind of tip, which looks a lot like a 3D printer nozzle actually. And I did see that somebody in the contest made a spinning battle top that uses a 3D printer nozzle as the tip, which is a great idea actually. Not as stable as the sphere, but still pretty good. Maybe to test them properly I would have to print another one of these and then actually battle them in the arena, but that's what we got for now. In the Beyblade animes, the battles are much more of a spectacle than they are in real life. And one of the main reasons for that is because of the sparks. They spark when they collide, sometimes they spark when they are just traveling through the arena. And for my third and last idea, I'm going to try to make a sparking Beyblade. In real life, the easiest way that I found to make sparks is using a fire starter, for obvious reasons. The most common one being the ferro rod. So that's what we're going to try and embed in our third attempt Beyblade, okay? I could try to embed it on the Beyblade's blade to achieve something like in this picture here, but there are 2 issues with that. The first one is that we might make the battle top unbalanced, and also if I don't manage to make it secure, the ferro rod can just fly out while the blade is spinning. And not only that, but I would have to cut the ferro rod in several small pieces, and cutting the ferro rod causes it to spark, so I rather avoid cutting it several times if I can. So the easiest way to avoid all of those downsides that I mentioned is to go for something like on the first picture here. So the sparks will be generated by the friction between the battle top and the floor, and not actually through the collision of 2 battle tops, you know? Okay, so here is how the bottom with the ferro rod turned out. Important to note that I printed this using PETG, mostly because sparks are hot and I don't want things melting. I also ended up designing this blade here that has a bunch of holes for lighter flame. So this should give us those collision sparks that we see so often in the cartoon. It's not balanced at all, but it also didn't generate any sparks. To be honest, I did have some trouble generating sparks using the provided tool, like there's a coating here or something like that. However, when using the floor to generate some friction, I did manage to create some sparks. That required quite a bit of force, so I'm not sure we will be able to replicate that using the battle top, but we should at least try spinning it on the floor as well. Again, no sparks at all. Maybe if the top was heavier, but I don't actually think this is going to work, guys. Okay, so sparking blade now. I'm just using the regular bottom. And I have a 1, 2, 3 block as my test dummy. I swear to you that I tested this once off camera and the sparks did work, but this time it just doesn't want to work. Basically, we lost all of the flint and it broke in several different places, as you can see. This time I made the holes for the flint deeper, so it's less likely to fly out. And the blade is printed solid, so it's much less likely to break. Something that I didn't mention last time is that it's also printed in PETG. But yeah, let's see how it performs in action. Okay, so even though I printed this solid, as you can see, with several perimeters, it broke pretty instantly. Not sure if because the opponent is made out of steel, but either way, I still expected this to last a little bit longer at least. I couldn't find in the contest page any information about when the winner will be announced, but it seems like it could be between a few weeks and a few months. Either way, the links for the files are in the description, and if you want to help me win, you can go there and like, download, and so on. But I guess that's it for today. See you guys next time.